أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة ارجعي إلى ربك راضية مرضية فادخلي في عبادي وادخلي جنتي صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Before I begin, I just wanted to remind that inshallah tomorrow night we will have the amal for the night of Ashura. These nights that we are now getting into are the nights to weep and to cry for the tragedy as these nights gets closer and closer to the day of Ashura. And at the same time, as the ibadat of crying itself is a worship, but Ma'asumeen have also mentioned a few amal that are recommended, highly recommended. And these nights are no less than, as far as the reward, not that we are looking for, but the reward of these nights is equal to the nights of Shab Qadr and 15th of Shaban and so on and so forth. So I would urge all of you, it's not a very lengthy amal that will be performed tomorrow night. It will be starting at midnight, maybe half hour worth of amal. Inshallah we'll conclude with the ziyarah, and then followed by the majlis as has been announced in the announcements. So inshallah I hope that everybody is able to make for these amal, and obviously the amal that we'll be performing on the day of Ashura. Salawat bi Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The verse that we've been reciting is from chapter 89, ayat 27 to 30, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is addressing by saying, O nafs mutmain, the serene soul, the satisfied soul, return to your Lord in the state that you are satisfied and He is satisfied with you. Enter among my servants and enter into my paradise. We've been discussing the messages from Ashura from the very first night. And we had divided the messages of Ashura into theological messages that we can derive. And under the theological messages, we talked about the concept of Tawheed that was presented by Imam and his companions. And then we talked about some of the ethical messages that we can derive from Ashura. And so we talked about the concept of Isar, preferring others on yourself. Concept of Tawakkul, relying completely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We talked about the concept of Amr bil Ma'ruf, exhorting or enjoining each other in good and forbidding the evil. And we also went ahead and discussed the reality of life from the perspective of Imam Masoom, Imam Hussein, and the reality of life that they had portrayed. And today we want to talk about the historical lessons that we derive from Ashura. Because indeed, it's an event which left its mark in the history of Islam or the history of Muslimin. And we will differentiate between the two as well. That it has to have some sort of roots from the very beginning of Islam. A question that arises, a person who is studying the history of Islam or the history of Muslimin, is that how is it possible that within 50 years after the death of Rasulullah, his grandson is martyred in the fashion that he was martyred? And not just his grandson, but also his family who had gone along with him were kept in captivity as if they belonged to different sects which were not respected at that time. No, this was the household of Rasulullah. What happened in these 50 years' time that led to such an event? So as a historian or a Muslim or a non-Muslim, you want to study and get down to the bottom as to what was the events that led to such atrocious or these things that happened in the 61st year of Hijrah. We look at the history that Prophet, his demise in the 11th year of Hijrah. And after his demise, right away there's an incident that takes place. Before Prophet is even buried into the ground, there's already an event simultaneously taking place not too far away from the mosque of Rasulullah in Saqifa Bani Saida, the event of Saqifa. I'm sure many of you have heard a great deal about Saqifa, but so that the younger ones, I can refresh them or remind them, or those who have forgotten as to what took place, very briefly, because it's not a time to recite what happened in Saqifa, but how we can relate historically what happened in Karbala and what are the roots of the events that took place in Karbala. That in Saqifa, Ansar, predominantly the people from Medina who had helped Rasulullah, welcomed him when he migrated from Mecca. They gather and they're choosing and working towards choosing the leadership of the Muslim Ummah after Prophet, because Prophet has just passed away. Now the family members are in the house of Rasul, getting ready to bury him, going through the last rituals, and a lot of the companions are also there. The first Khalifa and the second Caliph of Islam, they're also there. Abu Bakr is there, Umar is there, Amir al-Mu'mineen is there, many other companions, the close companions are also there, and obviously the family members are there. This is where someone tells them that in Saqifa Bani Saida, they're choosing the next leader or the Imam or the Khalifa of the Ummah. Right away, the first and the second Khalifa, they get up and they leave. Now, I want to know what would be more important than burying the person who brought you to this level, a person who took us out of darkness, a person who worked for 23 years in the Muslim Ummah to bring it to the state where Quran is saying, Al-Yawm akmaltu lakum dinakum, that today I have completed this religion for you. I have perfected my favors onto you, and I have chosen Islam as the religion for you. What could be more important than burying him? But nonetheless, they get up and they leave. When they're over there, they see that Ansar are pushing an agenda to go ahead and choose a leader. Right away, Abu Bakr has a background. He comes, he's one of the earlier caliphs or the earlier companions of Rasulullah. He gets up on the pulpit and he starts speaking. He says the leader, the next leader should only be from Quraysh. And Quraysh, a tribe from Mecca. So canceling out anyone who stands up, wants to be a leader from Medina, that's not a possibility. Only Quraysh can decide about the leadership. And only Qurayshi should be the next leader of the Ummah. So he presents two names. He presents the name of Abu Ubaidullah ibn Jarrah and Umar ibn Khattab. These are the two names that he presents. He said, choose one of these two as the leader. Right away there was this differences of opinion and the voices are being raised as to what the suggestions are being given. And obviously you can see a rift between the Muhajirin and the Ansar is getting to peak. This is where Umar stands up and it says that I sit in favor of Abu Bakr and I pay allegiance on the hands of Abu Bakr. Seeing this, And looking at Umar's background, his influence, everybody jumps and says, yes, we also follow and we second what Umar has done. And so Abu Bakr was unanimously at that point, at least in that room, picked as the Khalifa. And then this whole incident is quoted by Ibn Ishaq, one of the earliest historians, whom even Tabari has used predominantly. Whatever you see in Tabari, in the Tarikh al-Tabari and other books of history, Ibn Ishaq is the main source, who was in the 1st century. And so he quotes all of this, basing his information on Ibn Abbas. This takes place. The Muslim Ummah has already decided on the leadership. And once the Caliph has been picked, now the information and the announcement I was just trying to tell our younger ones, and this is what happened in Thaqifa, Bani Sa'ida. To put it into perspective, we see that how is it related to that which happened 60 years, 50 years later. Hadith from our 6th Imam, Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam. He said, Inna wa ala Abi Sufyan ahla baytain ta'adayna fillahi. He said, we, the household of Rasulullah, and the children of Abu Sufyan are the two tribes or the two houses of Islam. He said, Qulna, we say, we actually debated over Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, we say, Qulna sadaqallahu, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whatever He has said is correct. وَقَالُوا كَذَبَ اللَّهُ, and they said, Allah has lied. And then he says, قَاتَلَ Abu Sufyan Rasulullah. Abu Sufyan is the reason for the death of Rasulullah. وَقَاتَلَ Muawiyah Ali ibn Abi Talib. He holds Muawiyah to be responsible for the qatl of Amir al-Mu'mineen. وَقَاتَلَ Yazid ibn Muawiyah al-Husayn ibn Ali. Yazid is responsible for killing Husayn ibn Ali. وَالسُّفْيَانِ يُقَاتِلُ الْقَائِمِ. And Sufyani will come out and he will be responsible for killing Imam Zamana, Ajjalallahu ta'ala farajahu sharif. Salawat Muhammad wa Muhammad. And so this is the history of Islam, or when the Banu Umayyah and the Abbasids come into play, we would rather name it to be the history of Muslimin, because the way of governing, the methodology and the rule, the way Prophet had taught has drastically changed. So you cannot really name it to be the history of Islam, because if you want to say it to be history of Islam, there's a lot of discrepancies in it. And Islam is not teaching any of those things, and therefore it will be injustice to call it to be the history of Islam. So it is better off calling, because these people were still Muslimin, having recited the Shahadatain, to be calling it the history of Muslimin. Now how is it we see that the roots of Ashura can be seen in Saqifa? With this event taking place, now one of the great scholars of our time, his name is Ayatollah Isfahani. He puts it beautifully in a couplet when he recites that. He says, فَمَا رَمَاهُ إِذْ رَمَاهُ هُرْمُلَا. Hurmula is the person who let the arrow go, which struck Ali Asghar. He said he did not send the arrow when he sent the arrow. Why? وَإِنَّمَا رَمَاهُ مَنْ مَهَّدَهُ لَهُ. The one who prepared the ground for him is the one who's responsible for sending that arrow. People on the ground are not totally responsible for what is happening. It is the commanders who have given the commands. So you don't go ahead and blame the soldiers who are doing it. Partially, in this regard, you do blame the soldiers as well. Why? Because you see, there's an army which is known as the army of 30,000 people that Yazid has prepared and Ibn Ziyad has prepared. And on the other hand, the army, if you want to call it a short 100 people, maybe 120, 72 of them are men who are martyred, remaining are the ladies and the children. So you compare 30,000 on one hand, and you compare 120 people on the other hand. Do you really think that the 30,000 will have any problem killing these 72 or 100, 120 people? They would require incentives to go ahead and kill them. And this is why we see among the messages that we learn, the historical messages from Ashura, is that these people, anyone would be seeing that this is the son of Rasulullah, this is the son of the daughter of Rasulullah. Looking at when Imam brings his 6-month-old in his arms, the change that it brought about, the transformation that it brought about in the armies of Ibn Ziyad and Umar Asad, it was amazing how the tears were actually coming down. So there were incentives that were given to these individuals so that they go ahead and perform what they are asked to do. Otherwise, it will be very difficult for an army of 30,000 to even think about crushing 72 or 100 people. So there were incentives. For example, Umar Asad was given an incentive. What was the incentive that Umar Asad was given? Umar Asad, do you think, did not know who Imam Hussein is? You and I know who Imam Hussein is because we have read about Imam Hussein. Umar Asad, does he not know who Imam Hussein is? He literally grew up in the same area. His father, Sa'ad ibn Abil Waqas, is the one, and inshallah I'll get to the point that I'm trying to connect with Kufa and all that. We will get to that, is the one who established Kufa. He knows, he's seen Imam Hussein in the time that Amir al-Mu'mineen was there in Kufa. So he knows Imam Hussein. You and I might know Imam Hussein from the identification perspective, that his name is Hussein, his son of Ali, his son of Fatima, his grandson of Rasulullah, his children are this, Ali, and whatnot, and we know his wife's name, we know his sister, we know these things. Maybe it's an identification, the ID card information that we have of Imam Hussein. But these people knew him before more. Why? They were growing up together. They were in the same area. So do you think he does not know who Imam Hussein is? He definitely knows who Imam Hussein is. So therefore he needs an extra incentive to go ahead and perform such a thing. What was the incentive that was given to him? Yazid had promised him that I will give you the governance of Shahr-e-Ray, the city of Ray. That was all was in his mind. City of Ray, I'm sure those who have visited Iran, in Tehran, that's where the city of Ray is, not too far away from there. And that was a big area at that time. All of Persia basically would have been given to Umar Asad. So that was a big incentive for him to go ahead and perform what he was asked to perform by Yazid. So this is where we see, not those people who are on the ground are to be blamed. In this regard, you do blame them because they have incentives. But the soldiers are actually working on the commands of someone else. So this is what Ayatollah Isfahani said. He said, فَمَا رَمَاهُ إِذْ رَمَاهُ هُرْمُلَا. When Hurmula sent that arrow, it wasn't him who was sending it. He says, وَإِنَّمَا رَمَاهُ مَنْ مَحَّدَهُ لَهُ. It was the one who had prepared the ground for Hurmula to send that arrow. سَهْمٌ أَتَى مِنْ جَانِبِ السَّقِيفِ. This is the sahm, this is the arrow which was prepared and it was coming actually from the direction of Saqifa. And so we look at how the downfall of Islam begins right after the death of Rasulullah. The first Khilafat comes into play. The second Khilafat comes into play. The third Khilafat comes into play. And finally Amir al-Mu'mineen is chosen at the fourth Khalifa, in the fourth place. And that too, in the 4 or 5 years that Imam is the head of the state, he's busy with the wars that are being waged within from the Islamic world. So we see that this is something which was established not just in the 61st year of Hijrah, but it had roots going back all the way from the demise of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wa sallam. Salawat bheji Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And to prove this point even further, what did Yazid say? He said, I wish my ancestors were here today to see how I have avenged and taken the revenge on their behalf of what happened in Badr or what happened in Uhud. The battles that took place in the very early years of the Hijrah, second and the third year of Hijrah. That's when the battle of Badr and the battle of Uhud is taking place. Ibn Ziyad, on the other hand, what does he say? He says, Yawmun bi yawmi Badrin. This is the day and against the day which was on the day of battle of Badr, when our ancestors were killed. So this also links, their kalam is also linking to what they're saying, that what we have done is basically is the result, and how the roots of this is attached with the roots of Saqifa. So over here we want to see as to, did Imam make sure that these people understood what they were doing? First thing that Imam did was itmam hujjat, the ultimatum, that every time when Imam went towards the battlefield, or every time one of the companions went towards the battlefield, first and the foremost thing that they did was to announce that what they were, to announce what they were doing, to announce who they were and who they were fighting for. This is called itmam hujjat. Telling these people, if you don't know who you are up against, this is son of Rasulullah. If you don't know who this person is, this is the person in regards to whom Rasulullah said, Hassan wal Hussein Sayyida Shababi Ahl Jannah. Hassan and Hussein are the masters or the leaders of those youth in paradise. If you don't know who Hussein is, Rasulullah had said, Husaynun minni wa ana min al Hussein. Hussein is from me and I am from Hussein. If you don't know these ahadith, even there are people alive at this point. Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari is alive, go ask them. Go ahead and ask other people, such as Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, he's alive. Go ahead and ask him this question. And all these other people who are still alive, who had heard this directly from Rasulullah, and they know what they have said in regards to Imam Hussein. So every person who went along, every person had gone ahead and said the same thing. In fact, it was the reality that they were saying in regards to Itmam Hujjat. Surah Nisa, verse number 165 points out to us, saying, Rusulan mubashirina munzirina li'alla yakuna lil nasi ala Allahi hujjatun ba'da ar-rasul. These people that we have sent, Allah said, the Rasul, the prophets that we have sent, what is the reason behind sending them? So that tomorrow nobody can say that there was no hujjat upon us, there was no warning that was given to us, there was no glad tidings that was given to us. We were found dumbfounded, we did not have any knowledge. Imam Hussein and every companion that walks into the battlefield, first and the foremost thing that they do, they announce why they're here, what are they doing, and who are they representing. So tomorrow nobody can say, oh, we were misled into doing something and we did not know about this. Second thing is the desire of the world that we see in these people that gave them the incentive to perform what they were doing. As I said, 30,000 standing in front of 100 people. You would require some sort of incentive to kill these people. Otherwise, many would go ahead and desert and say, well, you can go ahead and kill them. You don't need all of this army to kill. So there were incentives that were given to these individuals. And that's why Imam ﷺ said, he said, مُلِعَتْ بُطُونَكُمْ بِالْحَرَامِ فَطُبِعَ عَلَىٰ قُلُوبِكُمْ. Your bellies and your stomachs are filled with haram, consumption of haram and forbidden, and that is why your hearts have been sealed and you cannot see the reality. You do see the reality, but at the same time you feel that that's the story on the day of Ashura when everybody had been killed. A person comes and tries to snatch the earrings from a girl's ear, and he was crying, and at the same time he was snatching this. So the girl said, why are you crying? He said, I'm crying because I'm snatching it from the daughter of the family of Rasulullah. She said, then why are you snatching it? He said, because if I don't do it, someone else will come and do the same thing. So that's why I'm doing it. So you see this tazad, this contradiction in people's mind. That is the reason why your bellies are filled with haram. Your bellies, when they are filled with haram, with forbidden, what does it do? فَطُبِعَ عَلَىٰ قُلُوبِكُمْ. Your hearts become sealed. And when the hearts are sealed, they do not want to see the reality, even if it might be in front of them. Ever since Karbala, there's a discussion that who should be blamed for the killing of Imam Hussein. And we see that a lot of time Yazid is being protected. That even Yazid did the same thing. After killing Imam Hussein, what did he do? When he realized the mistake that he had made, after a while, keeping the family in captivity, he realized the mistake. What does he say? These are his words. He said, لَعَنَ اللَّهُ ibn Marjana. If we recite the la'anat on Ibn Marjana in our ziyarat, and people are surprised, why are we doing this? This is the kalam of Yazid, the first one who sent la'anat on Ibn Marjana. He said, لَعَنَ اللَّهُ ibn Marjana. May Allah curse Ibn Marjana. Who's Ibn Marjana? Ibn Ziyad. So may Allah curse Ibn Ziyad. Why? For what he did. He said, فَإِنَّهُ أَخْرَجَهُ وَإِسْتَرَّهُ. He's the one who forced Imam. He's the one who brought him out. I only asked him to bring him to me safe and sound. He went against my commands, and he went ahead and killed Imam Hussein. He said, "Hatta lam falam yafal bal aba alayhi wa qatalahu." I did not order him to kill. He went against my teachings. Aba alayhi wa qatalahu fabaghadani biqatlihi ila al-muslimin. He's the one who had made me hated in the eyes of Muslimin with the killing of Hussein. وَزَرَعَ فِي قُلُوبِهِمُ الْعَدَاوَةِ. And he's the one who had planted the seeds of hatred in the hearts of the people by killing Imam Hussein. فَأَبْغَضَنِي الْبِرُّ وَالْفَاجِرُ بِمَا اسْتَعْظَمَ النَّاسِ مِنْ قَتْلِ Hussein. So he's actually trying to remove the blame, saying that I was not the one who killed Hussein. Right away he realizes that this is something which he thought he would kill Hussein and get him out of the way, and it will be done with, and he can go on with the government of his own. But realizing the mistake that he had made, right away he's trying to take the blame away from himself. And he's saying Yazid, or he's saying Ibn Marjana is the one real culprit behind it. I had nothing to do with it. We see the same thing today which is happening, that when you ask, people say the ones who are crying for Hussein are the ones who are responsible for killing him. This notion, I don't know if you've heard it or not, it is a recent notion that those who are crying for Imam Hussein are the ones who are responsible for killing Hussein. Why? Because the Kufans had invited Imam Hussein. Kufans were all Shias. And we are the progeny of the same people from Kufa. And so the Kufans went against Imam. They did rebellion. They killed Imam Hussein. We are their progeny. Our ancestors are responsible for killing Imam Hussein. And that's why you see that this notion had began. Maybe it began 50 years ago. Maybe it began 2 years ago, 10 years ago. But this is something which is constantly going on. Yazid himself is trying to distance from killing of Hussein. Right away, there must be someone who should be blamed for killing Imam Hussein. Let's go deep into why they're saying we are responsible. He said, well, Kufans. Did the people of Kufa not write letters to Imam Hussein? Yes, he did. 12,000 people signed and sent that letter to Imam. And Kufa was a place where Amir al-Mu'mineen brought his capital. He moved his capital from Medina to Kufa. When he became the Khalifa, he brought the capital with him and he established it in Kufa. He said, because people of Kufa killed Imam Hussein, therefore, they're the ones who are responsible for it, and we are their progeny, we're responsible. You're saying the same people who were Shias in Kufa, you're saying that everybody was Shia in Kufa at that time? The same Kufa which also killed Amir al-Mu'mineen himself? Amir al-Mu'mineen was there for 4 years. After 4 years of hukumat, person from Kufa goes ahead and kills Imam Ali. If Imam Ali is not saved in 4 years' time, then in 20 years' time, Imam Hussein will not be safe either. I'll give you an example. I'm giving a speech right here. You're listening. This information might stay with you for next hour. If you're a good listener, maybe for a day. If you're very good, maybe for a month. These days you have internet, so you can go online, and if you want to listen to it again, you can go ahead and listen to it again to refresh your memories. But speaking, from the aspect how much we can retain, if there was something from the perspective of, tarbiyat and ethical value that I was trying to implement today over here, it might stay with you for maybe half hour, 45 minutes, an hour after the majlis. So this is where you say, in Farsi that obviously if something is cooking, the kasa or that zarf is very hot. It's hot for a while. Then it warms up. Then it cools down and it's no longer warm and cool. So the impact will be right away. But the impact will become or lighten up or cool down after a while. So if anything, right now is the time for implementation. Maybe after a day you might forget what was said. So usually the impact is right away. If people stand up and kill Amir al-Mu'mineen within 4 years, the same people can still go ahead and kill Imam Hussein in 20 years. If anything, those people shouldn't have killed Imam Ali within 4 years. So we look at Kufa is not one, maktab or one cultural background or one madhab that lives in Kufa. There are plenty of people. The reason why Imam is bringing his capital, a lot of people question that as well. Why is Ali changing the capital from Medina to Kufa? It's a big mistake. There's a reason why Imam is doing that. Kufa has become a place where those Badriyin, those who fought in the Battle of Badr, had moved from Medina to Kufa. Battle is a place where there's factories of making weapons. This is a place where there are different ethnic backgrounds. This is a place where there are different religious groups are living over here. Christians are living there. In fact, at that time, Christians were the main trade and merchants and the businessmen of the area. And Jews in Kufa at that time, all the industries were in their hands. And then there were other religious minorities that lived there. Among the Muslims, Khariji were there, Khawarij that we call them. The Ghali were there. Mujabbara were there, Hashwiya were there. All of these groups were there. Ghali, just to explain one, is the one who takes the Ma'asumeen to the level of uluhiyat, compares them with Allah. Unfortunately, you might not find those people in the world anymore, but the Shias have kept them alive. Especially the Shia poets have kept these Ghalis alive. You listen to them in their poetry, right away they're praising the Ghalis, what Ghali has done, and what he's, there are two groups, Ghali and Nasib. Ghali is the one who takes the Ma'soom, infallibles, and compares them with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nasibi is the one who hates them and degrades their status. Both of them, Imam said, halaka fiyya rajulan. Amir al-Mu'mineen says that. Is that two groups of people were destroyed and ruined over me. One, the one who loves me so much, Ghalin, the one who does ghuluv and compares me with Allah, and the one who hates me so much that degrades my status. Both of these are ruined. So this was Ghali. Unfortunately, you will not find anyone coming today and saying that I am the followers of Ghali, but you will find them in the poetry, especially of the poetry of the Shias and the Shia poets who have kept the Ghalis alive. Salawat bheji Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa. So there are different types of people that are living there. So there's not one group that is living there. There are Persians there, Byzantine, all the other different groups are living in Kufa at that time. It's a centralized place now for all of these activities. And so you can't say this one group is responsible, this one group came up. Even in the time of Imam Hussein, the letters that Imam received, there are two different texts that are found in the letters. Actually, there are many texts that are found in the letter. One type of text in the letters that is found says that, "O Imam, the tyrant leader had died. He placed another tyrant and incompetent in his place. We do not accept his leadership. It's the best time for you to come. We are with you and we will support you." This document is signed by people such as Sulaiman ibn Surad al-Khuza'i, Musayyab, Habib, and Mukhtar, and so on and so forth. This is the text of that. And there's another letter which comes to Imam, signed by other people such as Umar ibn Hurayth, Shabas ibn Rabi'i, Hussein ibn Numair. These people signed, they say, well, one incompetent left, another incompetent has come. The conditions are good. The crops are ready to be harvested. The fruits are ripened and are ready. Oh, if you want to come, we'll welcome you. So you see two types of text that we find in the history books. One is signed by these, the other one is signed by those. The first letter, which was signed by Sulaiman ibn Surad al-Khuza'i, Habib, and Musayyab, and so on and so forth, tells you one story. The other letter is telling you another story. Sulaiman is the one who is the head of Tawabin. When he could not be part of the army of Imam Hussein and could not take part, he later on revolted, and there was a group by the name Tawabin, and he became part of them. Janab Mukhtar, we all know who that is. The Qiyam of Mukhtar that takes place a couple of years after the events of Karbala. And we know Habib, who was able to come and join Imam, and likewise other people were able to come and join Imam. Some were able to come, some were not able to come. Those who could not come, they became part of Tawabin, or later on Qiyam of Mukhtar. But look at the other side, the other names that I recited. Umar ibn Hurayth, Shibas Rabi'i, Hussein ibn Numair. These are the commanders in the army of Ibn Ziyad and Umar Sa'd. So you see, there's not one type of people that live in Kufa. So you can't say that all Kufans are Shia, and therefore Shias are the one responsible for killing Imam Hussein, because Shias all went and fought against Imam Hussein in Karbala. No, not all of them went. Some of them actually stayed back. Later on, there was Qiyam that went on. Later on, there were Tawabin. Later on, there were Mukhtar, and so on and so forth. So there's difference that we see in this regard. Right away, you start questioning these things, people become defensive. And so you see that it's very simple if I want to explain to the younger ones, the kids over here, that, for example, someone, God forbid, on your street, in your neighborhood, you heard that someone died. Someone was killed, for example. God forbid. You say, who got killed? You say, well, let's go find out who got killed. So you go to their house. You see there are a lot of people. There's police and whatnot. Obviously, there will be police. But you're still trying to figure out that what happened, who got killed. Trying to get to the bottom of the story. Because it's related to you. It's in your neighborhood. It's on your street. If you were living somewhere else, you would find out on the news, but you're living there, so you want to know. Maybe you're under some danger as well. So we say, okay, let's go find out who got killed and who was murdered and whatnot. We see while we're standing there, a person comes out crying from the house. And when he comes out crying from the house, there are 4 other people who are standing on the side. They start laughing and there's smirk on their face. I'd say to you, this person who's coming out crying from the house, he's the killer. Right away you'll question. We thought you had some logic. You're a man of logic. This person coming out of the house, apparently he's crying and weeping, seems like a family member. How can he be the killer? Well, usually the criteria is people say those who cry are the ones who are the killers. If that's not an example good enough, we look at Quran. Quran narrates a story. A story of Hazrat Yaqub, Prophet Jacob, and Hazrat Yusuf, Prophet Joseph. Hazrat Yusuf was taken away by his brothers, thrown into the well, and then later on he was picked up by a caravan and he went to Egypt, and you know the story. Quran says in chapter 11, in Surah Yusuf, chapter 12, the ayat, chapter 11, verse number 84, what does it say? وَبْيَضَّتْ عَيْنَاهُ مِنَ الْحُزْنِ. That Jacob cried so much that he went blind and his eyes were white because of extensive crying. Let's go ahead and blame Hazrat Yaqub for doing what happened to his brother and to his son, Hazrat Yusuf. Why? The criteria is the one who cries is the one who's responsible for the calamity. That's the criteria. Let's go ahead and blame Hazrat Yaqub for what happened to Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. No, that's not the criteria. So you can't look at it from one eye and say, well, that is not the reality. And then throughout the history, you can show me one scholar from our fiqh who ever praised Yazid, whoever praised Muawiyah, whoever praised or tried to justify their actions, whoever tried to elevate their ranks or their status. You will not find any scholar who belongs to the Shia fiqh or the Shia faith to be writing in favor of these individuals. But on the other hand, you see many scholars from the other side trying to defend Yazid, trying to take the blame away from Yazid, trying to elevate his and his father's status and giving them high ranks, and saying even to the extent that Yazid's governance and Khilafat was legitimate. We said, no, those who haven't written anything in favor of Yazid, they are to be blamed. Those who are constantly trying to defend him have nothing to do with it. It's that simple it is. We are debating over this, we're talking about it, and I've run out of my time, and I've even gone through the messages that we learned, the historical messages that we learned. But instead of this debate, one ordinary layman solved this problem for us. He said, people right away blame us. Why do you send curses on them? Why do you send la'nat on someone? This is not right, this is not correct. And I just quoted in front of you, the first one who sent la'nat was Yazid himself, sending la'nat on Ibn Ziyad. Not that he's any authenticity for us, that we are following him. But nonetheless, a layman who was weeping and crying for the tragedy of Karbala. A person comes up to him and says, why are you crying? He said, I'm crying for Imam Hussein. There's a hadith which says, a narration which says there's merits for crying for Hussein and weeping for Hussein. He said, but you are responsible for killing him. He said, excuse me? He said, yeah, you're responsible for killing him. Isn't it your ancestors from Kufa that wrote letter to Imam Hussein, invited him, and they're the ones who killed him? At least that's what the history says. So the guy asked him, so those people who killed Imam Hussein, they're my ancestors? He said, yes. They were from Kufa, they were the Shia of Ali, and you are Shia of Ali as well. He said, those people who killed Imam Hussein, they have no relationship with you? He said, no, they don't have any relationship with me. They're related to you. He said, if they don't have any relationship with you, and they're my ancestors, so then let it be with me whether I praise those individuals or I curse those individuals. It will be my act. But I know whenever I curse those individuals, it bothers you every time I curse them. So that shows that who was actually responsible and who holds a soft corner for those individuals. If they were my grandfathers, if they were my ancestors, then let me treat them the way I want to. Either praise them or either curse at them. But when I curse, I see that you cannot handle that. I see that you feel bothered by that. Therefore, it tells me that who is actually the followers of those individuals. So bringing it closer back together, that among the messages from Ashura that we've been talking about, one of the things is that the historical facts, that what happened, the things that led to these people to stand up against Imam Hussein. One of them was the desire for this world that they had. Like the example of Umar Asad, who was promised Shahr-e Rai. And other people who were promised different things. Imam said to Umar Asad, forget the city of Rai. You will not even get to taste in fact, Imam used the word that you will not be able to taste the wheat of that land. You know what Umar Asad did? He ridiculed Imam. Turned around by saying, okay, so if I won't get to taste wheat, I'll go ahead and taste barley, for example. Imam was saying, forget about the city. You won't even be able to smell or get close to that city. And Imam was giving prophecy ahead of time, and that's what happened. We see that these nights, as they're increasing, weeping and the crying is considered to be among the ibadat, worship. And this is where our duty is that at the same time when we are crying for Sayyid al-Shuhada, we also remember that the important thing that Sayyid al-Shuhada wanted from each and every single one of us was to take those messages that he struggled for, that he worked so hard for, just the same way Prophet of Islam worked for 23 years to bring this religion to a place where it was considered the perfect religion. Imam Hussein's blood should not go in vain either. His blood should not go in vain either. Every single person who goes into battlefield is giving their blood, and the pure blood. And we see that among them is a person by the name Abul Fadl Abbas. Who is this Abul Fadl Abbas? Story tells us that Abul Fadl Abbas is a 34-year-old man who's son of Amir al-Mu'mineen, and who is son of Baneen. Baneen sends 4 children to Karbala. It's a big sacrifice by Baneen. As I mentioned the other day, it's very strange in Karbala. Some people are there to sacrifice themselves, but those who could not be there, they're sending their sacrifices. Imam Hassan, who knew that he would not even be in the world, sends a sacrifice in the form of his son Qasim and the other sons that were there as well. Baneen sends 4 children. And when this whole caravan comes back to Medina, Baneen is asking, how is my Hussein? People keep telling her that Abbas died. People keep telling her that your other son Uthman died. People keep telling her that your other son Abdullah. You keep telling her the names of our sons that died. He said, what about Hussein? He said, let it be known that as long as Hussein was alive, as long as your children were alive, nobody could touch Hussein. And at that point, she felt satisfied. This is the sacrifice of Baneen. We see that Baneen sends these 4 kids. They're not kids anymore. In fact, Hazrat Abbas, at the time when Amir al-Mu'mineen was struck by the sword of Ibn Muljam, Imam, when he was bringing the family together and giving advice to everyone that listen to Hassan after me, he's your Imam. And at that point, he asked Imam Hussein and he asked Hazrat Abbas to come. And he puts the hand of Hazrat Abbas in the hands of Imam Hussein. He said, oh Hussein, oh Abbas, let it be known that you are my son and Hussein is son of Rasulullah. There will come a day that the son of Rasulullah will be in need, and make sure that he's alive and he's safe as long as you're alive and safe. A time came when the daughters of Imam Ali were weeping. Imam said, there will be a day when your veils will be snatched from your heads. Zainab said, oh Mawla, as long as we have brother like Abbas, Abul Fazl Abbas, how dare can anyone snatch our veils? But the day of Ashur, Janab Zainab was saying, لَقَدْ صَدَقَ أَمِيرُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Imam Ali was correct in saying what he said when the veils were being snatched from their heads. Hazrat Abbas comes to Imam Hussein asking for his permission. Oh Mawla, can I go towards the Maqtal? Imam turns around and says, oh Abbas, you are the commander of the army. How can I let you go? Hazrat Abbas turns around and says, Mawla, which army are you referring towards? Every one of those individuals from this army have gone and have sacrificed themselves. There's no one left behind me anymore. Imam said, oh Abbas, if that is what you want, then before you go, do one favor. The kids are thirsty, the women are thirsty, get some water for them, and then you can go towards the Maqtal. You see that Imam did not stop Hazrat Abbas from performing jihad, because going and getting water itself is a jihad itself. Imam gives permission to Hazrat Abbas to go ahead and fetch some water. He takes the water skin from Hazrat Sakina and he goes towards Furat, and as he's going towards Furat, initially in the early days when the caravan had come into Karbala, there were only 50 people guarding this lake of Furat, but right now there are 4,000 that are guarding. So Hazrat Abbas, it's not an easy task for him anymore. He goes, we're taking all of what he could with himself. He's got a sword with himself, he's got a spear with himself, he got this flag with himself, and he also is taking this water skin with himself. He goes towards the lake Furat. When he gets to the lake Furat, it's not an easy task for him to just go and walk in and get some water. There are 4,000 men over there who are stopping Hazrat Abbas from coming through. This is where we see the fighting and the bravery of Hazrat Abbas, the bravery that was once seen in Ali ibn Abi Talib, the bravery that we saw in Ja'far al-Tayyar, the bravery that was seen in Sayyid al-Shuhada, Hazrat Hamza, all coming together in the form of Hazrat Abbas. When he fights through 4,000 men, anyone who was coming close to Abbas, either the heads were flying away or the bodies were flying away. This is how Hazrat Abbas had to get to Furat. But once he makes his way into the Furat, he could feel the coolness of the water. He steps into the water. His horse also steps into the water. But we see that Hazrat Abbas, this is the loyalty of Abbas, that he could have drank the water from Furat. He is also thirsty for the past 3 days. He's not just himself, but also his animal is thirsty for the past few days. But this is the loyalty, that reminding himself that there are still kids who are saying Al-Atash, Al-Atash, Al-Atash in the tents. How could he go ahead and drink as long as Sakina is thirsty? How can he go ahead and drink as long as Ali Asghar is thirsty? How can he go drink as long as Zainab and Kulthum are thirsty? Abbas does not drink from any water. He's so close to it, but this is how he controls his nerves. He gets the water into his water skin. He takes it upon himself. The only thing that Abbas wants to guard now is this water skin safely. There's only one perspective in his mind. There's only one reason and purpose of his life now, to bring this water to the kids and to the women that are in the tent. He's protecting it from all places. He's now going back towards the tent. But look at this. We had to go through 4,000 men who were on ground to get to the water. Now what they're doing, they're not coming close to Abbas. Nobody could dare come close to Abbas. But there's one way they can get to him, and that is by throwing arrows towards him. 4,000 men from all directions are throwing arrows towards Hazrat Abbas. He's guarding the water skin. From the right side, a person by the name Zayd ibn Warqa, he strikes one arrow onto the hand of Hazrat Abbas, making it that it will not work anymore, breaking his right arm. He quickly takes the water skin into his left hand, is still guarding the flag as well. He's moving along as quickly as possible, but there's another Ashqiya by the name Nawfal ibn Arzraq who strikes a blow from the left side, making his left hand go away. This is where Hazrat Abbas takes the water skin into his mouth and his teeth, and he's holding on to it, and the horse knows which way to go. But when these all arrows are coming from different directions, one arrow penetrates through and hits this water skin. Eventually the water drains out. Oh Abbas, the only purpose was to get this water, but now you do not have any water. Abbas would have preferred that the blood would have drained out of his body and not that water. He could have saved it by any means, but now there's no purpose for him to go back to the tent. How is he going to face Sakina? He had promised Sakina that he will bring water back for her. Sakina would be waiting. All her other kids will be waiting. All of the kids of Banu Hashim will be waiting. How would Abbas face them? But this is where the arrows keep coming. A person strikes a blow on the head of Hazrat Abbas by the name Hakim ibn Tufail, gets an opportunity, and then there's an arrow that goes right into the eyes of Hazrat Abbas. He could not control himself, and this is where there's no hope for going back either. But when he comes down, we've heard about the other Shuhada, that when they were on their horses and they were struck and they came down, when you come down from the horse, you use your hands to guard yourself. But oh Abbas, he does not have any of his hands anymore. How is he going to guard himself? Ajrukum Allah. May Allah give you no grief, but the grief and sorrow of Sayyid al-Shuhada. Abbas comes down onto the floor on the ground. He calls upon his Mawla. Ya Aba Abdullah, alayka minni salam. Oh my Mawla, salam unto you from Abbas. Imam hears the sound of Abbas. He holds on to his back and he says, Alan, in kasara zahri wa qallat hilati. Oh Abbas, you left. Now my back is broken. I cannot help myself. There are too many enemies. Imam Hussein comes to the body of Hazrat Abbas. A few words only, Imam Hussein comes to the body of Hazrat Abbas. He holds on to the head of Abbas, puts the head of Abbas onto his lap, removes the blood from his face, removes the dust from his face, takes out the arrow which was pierced into the eyes of Abbas, and he's consoling, oh Abbas, soon you will be able to go see Amir al-Mu'mineen. Imam wants to lift the body of Abbas and bring it back to the tent. Hazrat Abbas, the loyal servant of Imam Hussein, the loyal brother of Imam Hussein, the loyal brother of Zainab Kulthum, says, Oh Mawla, do me a favor, do not take my body to the tents. Imam says, why Abbas? He says, because how would I face the young Sakina? How would I face Zainab Kulthum? Just leave me where I am. Imam leaves Hazrat Abbas, but sees that Abbas is weeping. Abbas is crying. Imam says, why are you crying? You will be meeting your father. You will be meeting your grandfather very soon. What is the reason of crying now? Abbas says one sentence, Oh Mawla, when I fell to the ground, you came for my rescue. You have my head in your lap. But now later on, when you fall on the ground, who will be there for you? ألا لعنة الله القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. Oh Allah, please accept our ibadah tonight. Oh Allah, we have committed a lot of sins. Please forgive our sins. Oh Allah, deal with us with your mercy and do not deal with your justice. Oh Allah, give us the tawfiq and the strength to be able to follow the teachings of Masumeen alayhi salatu wassalam. Oh Allah, hasten the zuhur of our awaited Imam and make us among the helpers and the soldiers of Imam. Please recite a Surah Fatiha for the sponsors, Marhumeen, and those who do not have anyone to recite the Fatiha for. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim.